Kellyanne, thank you for being with me. First, I just want to kind of go over what the president has said about this. I want to pop up a tweet from him, if we may be able to do that for everybody on the screen. Democrat Governor Ralph Northam of Virginia just stated, "I believe that I am not either of the people in that photo." This was 24 hours after apologizing for appearing in the picture and after making the most horrible statement on super late-term abortion. Unforgivable, exclamation point. Unforgivable from the president. What is the latest from the White House now?
Hi, Harris. So the statement by the president actually reflects the point of view of many Americans today on two major issues that involved Virginia's sitting governor, Democrat Ralph Northam. So last week he apologized for his past and hoping to make amends, and then 24 hours later changed course and said, by the way, I'm not apologizing because it didn't involve me and I'm not in the picture. This is exactly what people hate about politicians, that they're craven, they'll say anything, do anything that people put in front of them, their consultants, their focus group results say, and that they'll cling to power for no reason other than to keep that power. Every major Democrat, including those scared that Ralph Northam would be the Democratic sitting governor in Virginia when they run in 2020, which already started, they've called for him to resign. It's not clear whether they're calling for him to resign because, like the rest of us, are so outraged at these photos and his possible involvement in them, his stated involvement in them, or that they're worried about his liability as a sitting governor in Virginia. But the president said something else at the end of his tweet, which had really raised the ire of many Americans and got very little coverage by the mainstream media, who, of course, is pretty much pro-abortion themselves. Just look at their coverage and their lack of coverage. It's that this same governor earlier in the week said when an infant, used that word infant, didn't say uterine material, didn't say polywog, didn't say some mushy-looking thing on the sonogram screen, said infant. When the infant is delivered, that's a baby, when the infant is delivered, they'll keep them, quote, comfortable, and then have the physician and the mother discuss what's next. We are not a country that is going to allow for legal infanticide as long as Donald Trump is the president of the United States. And very few people picked up on that. The mainstream media all but ignored it. And it wasn't until this latest controversy that they came forward and said he should resign. It's up to the Democrats what they do with their Democrat governor who's embroiled in this racist controversy.
It's interesting that you put it that way. We're hearing from the Virginia State House Speaker, who's saying today that he's calling on Governor Northam to resign. A couple of just items there. You say most of the mainstream media being pro-abortion. I'm sure some of them would definitely take exception to that as they do their jobs.
Well, they're going to say they're pro-choice, but are they for this or against this? You can't be pro-choice and no longer own and claim these late-term abortions that are now being proposed as law in New York, in Virginia, and in 4 other states.
Completely understand that is within the realm of politics, perhaps, but you took a shot at the mainstream media, so I wanted to say that not everybody has political views that they would share on this to begin with and would share them in common. I want to move on and just ask you.
I have to say this. Why do they call it women's issues then? Why do we always have to hear that such and such politician is bad or good on, quote, women's issues? Don't they really mean abortion? Because I've been in politics for 30 years and I've never, not a single time, heard the phrase men's issues, because people believe male voters can handle all the issues.
Family issues.
All
right, let's move on. So that's an interesting question. Could be family issues. Let's change gears now. I know the president hinted yesterday in his Super Bowl interview that there were going to be some surprises, if you will, and anticipation of the State of the Union tomorrow about the border wall discussion. Can you talk with me about what's coming?
Well, he certainly will address the border wall, but also national security and border security, immigration overall. This is an address to the nation, but he's in the chamber in front of the Congress that has failed to do its job for any number of years, if not decades, on getting us an immigration plan in this country that, of course, secures our southern border, but also tackles the chain migration, the visa lottery system, TPS, DACA, all these things that this president, the dreamers, this president has put forward. But most importantly, in this State of the Union, the president is calling for an end to sort of resistance and retribution politics and calling for cooperation and compromise. He really wants to unify the nation as its commander-in-chief and its president, the leader of the nation, not a leader of a political party. And he's really using very specific examples of how Congress and he have done this already and how he'd like to, Harris, do it in the near future as well.
All right, real quickly, because there's been all this discussion about the semantics. Is it a border barrier? The president has gone back and forth. Maybe I won't call it a wall. Is he going to call it a wall in the State of the Union address tomorrow night?
Well, I'll leave that to him. I'm not going to speak specifically about the address, which I've seen and I think is fantastic in his voice.
Do you think he should call it a wall based on...
I think it doesn't matter, and here's why. I said probably 5 weeks ago on 2 Sunday shows, including your own network, that it's a silly semantics argument. Now lots of people are saying that, meaning we need a physical barrier. He has told the leadership in the Democratic Party here in the White House in the Situation Room, call it whatever you want. Call it steel slats, call it a barrier. Call it secure fences, Harris. Where did I get that idea?
From
Secure
legislation that already existed under Democrats.
That's right. Call it what you want. Call it a wall. Call it a physical barrier. But it must do the following. The description of it and its certitude is more important than what you call it. It must be a physical barrier that you can't crawl under, climb over, drive through, or walk around. You need to impede and deter these drugs, this human trafficking, the people coming over here and risking these small children now from the Northern Triangle countries, risking their health. Come legally like 33 million Americans have. We welcome it.
All right. So we don't know whether or not he'll call it a wall. But as you've said, you could call it, and I try to interject there with this information, you could call it what they called it in the last piece of legislation, which was under Democrats. They have more than 600 miles of which we're talking about already. Let's talk foreign policy. And the president saying...
he'll call it a wall, by the way, but they can call it what they want to.
Now we know. Okay, so he will call it a wall.
I didn't say in the State of the Union. I'm just saying he does say that.
Right,
But the reason he said last week, call a wall is because they're all dancing around it. Just pass the legislation.
I hear you.
Put it on his desk.
I hear you. All right. So just this weekend, the president again cast some doubt on his intelligence chief's reports. And you've got a look coming up with a second summit with North Korea. How is it exactly that you go into a second summit with a North Korean dictator when you distrust the intelligence, some of it, assessment?
He doesn't distrust his intelligence team. He said that when he disagrees, he lets that be known, and he let it be known very publicly recently. But let's not conflate the two. The second meeting with Chairman Kim is to move forward on the president's stated goal of complete and verifiable denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, which is everybody's business. We're already ahead of the game vis-a-vis North Korea because the 3 American detainees were returned. The remains of our brave soldiers who were lost who died and whose remains were in North Korea for almost 70 years, being returned to the vice president's care in Hawaii last year. Certainly trying to talk to Chairman King about denuclearization, but look, nothing's changed on the sanctions. The sanctions remain in place while these conversations continue.
Kellyanne, does the president trust what his intel chiefs are saying about North Korea as you head into the second summit?
So the president is listening to his intelligence team, and he's also listening to the reports that he has seen in the past and his previous conversations. He believes that we can achieve, not that we have, and not even that we're super close, but that we can achieve complete denuclearization. He has to at least try. We just started year 3 of his administration. Here's a president who's trying to make good on what his predecessor, President Obama, told him the day after he was elected would be his most vexing problem, quote, North Korea. Well, why is that? Because it wasn't solved, it wasn't ameliorated in those 8 years. And this is also a president who's taken us out of the Iran nuclear deal for much the same reason. He doesn't want nuclear-capable actors around the globe who have malicious intent with some of those nuclear capabilities.
I understand
obviously.
all of those points, and some among the American public are indicating and have in surveys that it makes them a little uneasy when the president and the intel chiefs may not be on the same page. But what you're saying is it isn't that he isn't listening to them.
Correct.
He's going to figure out what he believes in what they're saying and what the facts support.
Correct. And just quickly, the day that all of that came out, the day after they testified, they were here. I saw them at the White House. They were here to deliver their presidential daily briefing and have been here since. So I don't want the gossipy part to overstep and overtake
or the interpretation
facts,
of what's there.
That's right.
I gotcha.